Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 4 of our Mastering the Job Search conference. We're so excited. My name is Kate Green, the Executive Director for Dress for Success Toronto, and we're so grateful to be hosting this learning program again this year, focused on the future of work. We couldn't have done it without our big supporters this year. So our title sponsor, Mackenzie Investments, thank you. Our executive sponsor, Mars Canada, thank you. All of our session sponsors, LHH, Adecco, Indeed, and Phillips, thank you so much. And to all of our add-on supporters, ICF Toronto and Isomers, thank you. We couldn't have put this conference on without you. As we are getting ready to kick off day 4, as all of you know and who have been joining us this week, the past 2 years have disproportionately affected women in the workforce, and it has totally changed the way that employees work and businesses operate. Navigating this aftermath of the pandemic has been one of the biggest challenges of our time for businesses. Organizations are now working hybrid or digital model, ourselves included, and adopting new ways of working with their teams. As a result, companies have also changed the process of job applications, recruitment, interviewing, hiring, and everything is moving to a much more digital method. We're here this week to support you in navigating the future of work by gathering the tools, the resources, and the skills you need to thrive in your career search. Whether your career will be fully remote or 100% in person, we know that you'll be able to gain as much new insights and skills to help you navigate the future of work. To get started today, I am so thrilled to be introducing our program, Dress for Success Toronto's Director of Client Programs, Iona Frost. Enjoy the rest of the day.
And welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us this morning. And hello again to those who have been with us the whole week. I'm really excited to be back again today with my colleague, Kim, who is managing all the things tech and flow behind the scenes. So if this is your first session this week, don't worry, you haven't missed out. Everyone who's registered will receive a link to the recordings of all the conference sessions. And if you haven't already registered for our final day tomorrow, there's still time. And we'll be focusing on some tips to support your first 100 days in a new role. So at the end of today's session, we'll be sharing the link to that so that you can register, or you can always just hop over back to our website to sign up whenever you want. As always, we want to thank our amazing sponsoring partners for making this event possible. And we hope that you've had a chance to learn a little bit more about these companies and organizations during this event. So before we launch into today's incredible session, I'm going to cover a few quick housekeeping details. If you do experience any tech issues, please just click on the help button, which is on the right. It looks like a little ship's wheel. And here you'll find a list of frequently asked questions along with some troubleshooting tips. If you can't find the support that you need there, no problem. Just drop a message in the chat where Kim is at the ready to give you a bit of help. If you require closed captioning, if you click on the icon that's just above the help button, and this one looks like a cloud with an arrow pointing down, here you can download instructions to activate the closed captioning function. And as I already mentioned, no need to worry about madly writing notes for these sessions. We will be sending the recordings in a YouTube link channel, which will be sent to everybody next week. So although we're not in person, we want today to be as interactive as possible. So please don't be shy about asking questions or sharing your reactions throughout the session. So there's a couple of ways that you can do that. So again, we're going back to our right panel here. So there's a speech bubble with 3 dots, and that's for you to add any kind of comments that you would like to share with us. If you have a specific question, we ask that you pop that question in the speech bubble that has the question mark there. And so we will be having an opportunity to have a Q&A at the end of this discussion to answer some of your questions and have a bit of a conversation with the participants. And of course, last but not least, if you haven't already seen a few of these flying on your screen, please share your reactions by using these fun emojis to send your love, to send your thumbs up or your clapping if you are really excited about something that's being shared. So a couple of quick reminders, too, about some opportunities to win some very cool prizes. So at each of the 5 sessions throughout this week, we'll be giving away a $100 gift card, Visa gift card. These will be drawn at random, and the winners will be contacted directly. Plus, we're giving away 5 brand new Acer Chromebook laptops. So we've got a quiz prepared that has been and will continue to be live over the course of the conference with questions related to each day's session. So yes, the key here is to join us every day for your chance to win. The laptops will be awarded to the top 5 ranking individuals with the most points, and the winners will be announced a week after the event. So I'm so pleased to introduce finally our today's panelists and our discussion with Mars Canada to discuss how to thrive in an interview. For more than a century, Mars Incorporated has been driven by the belief that the world they want tomorrow starts with how they do business today. This idea is at the center of who they have always been as a global, family-owned business. Today, MYJS is transforming, innovating, and evolving in ways that affirm their commitment to making a positive impact on the world around all of us. Across their diverse and expanding portfolio of confectionery, food, and pet care products and services, MYJS employs over 4,000 associates in Canada and produces some of the world's best-loved brands, including things like Dove, M&M's, Snickers, Twix, and Whiskas, just to name a few. They take care of half the world's pets through their nutrition, health, and services business. MYJS knows that they can only be successful if their partners and the communities they're in prosper as well. The MYJS 5 principles, quality, responsibility, mutuality, efficiency, and freedom, inspire their associates to take action every day to help create a world tomorrow in which the planet, its people, and pets can thrive. I'm now very pleased to turn it over to our guest and moderator today, Samantha.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this panel discussion on how to thrive in an interview. My name is Susanna Dalrymple, and I'm the General Manager of MYJS Pet Nutrition Canada and sponsor of the Women of MYJS Resource Group. I want to first start by recognizing everyone here today. By taking part in this session and other events this week, you're taking an important step to build the future of your dreams. I know it can be really nerve-wracking looking for a new job, figuring out how to network, rebuilding your resume, learning how to interview, and going through all this process can be really nerve-wracking. I really hope that this session can answer some of the questions you have and give you some tips that are quite useful. MYJS believes that the world we want tomorrow is a place where all women are empowered to reach their full potential. We know women still face a range of barriers, and we're committed to unlocking those barriers within our communities and our workforce. This is why we're super proud to be working with Dress for Success. We strongly believe that their programs really provide women with great tools to empower them to reach their goals and thrive in life. So I really hope you enjoy this session and all of the sessions to come. And on behalf of MYJS Canada, thank you so much.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Sam Bular, and it is such a pleasure to be here with my fellow MYJS colleagues and all of you from the Dress for Success team for our panel discussion on how to thrive in an interview. I'm really excited. We have a great mix of panelists with us today, all MYJS associates with varying backgrounds in sales, HR, supply chain, manufacturing. They've worked across regions and have significant experience in recruitment, interviewing, coaching. So let's take full advantage of their expertise today and get the questions going in the chat box as well. Our objective for today is to be able to provide you with tangible advice that will help support you in thriving in an interview. So I'll kick us off with the kind of deeper introduction into ourselves before I pass it on to the panelists. And I'm also going to share a piece of career advice that I would give to my younger self as I now reflect on my own career journey. So like I said, my name is Samantha Bular is my full name. I'm currently the Customer Business Manager for Amazon for our pet nutrition segment. I've actually been with MYJS for 15 years. And I started my career off in R&D in an internship program following my graduation from university. And from there, I landed a full-time role at MYJS, where I moved into brand management, so on the marketing side of things, customer marketing, e-commerce, and now within sales, where I am the customer business manager. So really a diverse set of roles throughout my 15-year career journey at MYJS. And the advice that I would honestly give my younger self as I reflected on a lot of this is really, that fear of failure early on that kind of prevents and stops you from wanting to take risks in your career. Having gone through a lot of that and really reflecting, I'd say that's really the biggest advice is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to fail and really have that confidence in yourself and go after those opportunities. So now, before I hand it over to my colleagues, we're going to start off with a poll question. So Kim, if you can help us get that poll question live, we have 2 poll questions that we're looking to hear from the audience. So on the line of what is your experience interviewing and have you had to attend a virtual interview recently? Awesome. So I'm seeing some poll responses here. Have you ever had to attend a virtual interview? As the cursor's moving, 63% so far, yes. So definitely the majority on the room. Virtual interviews are really where the new norm is headed. So that's really interesting to see, and hopefully we can dig into that a bit today with some really great advice. And then, what is your experience interviewing? So it looks like Rusty might be the the majority. So also good. We have a lot of great advice coming your way today to help you brush up on those interviewing skills. So yeah, from here we can definitely get it started. And if we can bring the panelists onto the stage, we'll start with that as our next step. And then we can hear from them in terms of introductions and get started. Awesome. There they are. Awesome group of MYJS associates. So amazing to see you all here today. And yeah, I'll first pass it on to Siobhan to introduce herself and share some advice as we go around the room.
Great. Thanks, Samantha. And thank you so much, Dress for Success, for inviting me to this event. So my name is Siobhan. I've lived in Toronto for about 8 years. I'm actually from the West. I'm from Calgary. I'm married. I have a little Chihuahua named Ruby that we rescued about 2 years ago. And my passions are interior design. I love dogs. And I also love helping people be better than they were yesterday. So the current role I have at MYJS is the director of grocery, and I've worked at MYJS about 12 years, spending my time in a lot of different sales function roles, leading teams, coaching and developing others. And the one piece of advice that I would give is it's difficult, but remember, the only person you really need to impress is yourself. And when you remember that, when you're concerned about your opinion of yourself, your opinions of others don't matter so much. And so that's something that I wish I'd given myself earlier in my career, but this really helps you choose the right path when you're deciding on what next moves you want to make. Thanks, Sam.
Awesome. Thank you, Siobhan. Joe, I'll pass it to you.
Good morning. I'm so pleased to be here. Everyone on this call, you know that feeling when the technology goes horribly wrong. Well, that happened for me this morning. So I want to say thank you to everyone that supported me, but also, with these online interviews, that's a whole load of stuff that goes through your mind about, is the technology going to work? How am I going to do this? How am I going to present myself? And, just be reassured, it happens to me pretty much on a daily basis. So anyway, enough about me. I could talk about this topic forever. So I'm really passionate about people being better versions of themselves. I'm a Brit, so I should be back in England celebrating the Queen's Jubilee, but I'm living my best life in Canada. I've worked for MYJS for 16 years, and I've worked in England in various European roles, and now over here. So I sound massively confident, right? And you know what? I'm not. I hate interviews. I absolutely hate them. I feel like I'm being judged. I feel terrified. It's so the way that I overcome it, and believe me, I've been through a lot. And if we've got some time today, I'm happy to share some of the times that went really well and some of the times that didn't go so well. But there are a couple of things that go through my mind about interviews and how you rock up. So when I first started my career, I was a recruitment consultant. So I did a psychology degree, then I fell into sales, and I loved it, right? I really loved sales because you could make lots and lots of money. And what happened was people would walk into the office, or I would talk to them, and they would become walking placements, right? That was my term, a walking placement. And the way that I knew that they were a walking placement was three things. One was that they were confident. Yeah, they sat there with a smile on their face. They gave me good eye contact. They knew what they were doing. Second thing was they were prepared. So they had their examples ready. They knew their story. Even if there were gaps in their resume, they could talk them through it and talk about the transferable skills that they'd learned. And then the third thing was they were themselves, right? So there was no pretense. I've got good spidey sense, and a good interviewer can sniff out. That's probably the wrong word to use this morning, but they can work out when people are fudging things. So don't worry if you've got a gap in your resume. Just be clear on the reason why, but what your transferable skills were. And I'm just going to give a tip on something else, and then I promise to stop talking. When you prepare for an interview, it is like preparing for an exam in my mind, right? So use the STAR process. That's the one that works for me, but I'm sure the panelists have got other ones that work better for them. But the STAR process is think about the situation you were in, think about the task, the action, and then the result. If you go through those 4 things, then it allows you to kind of work through what the example was that you were doing. And for me, then, even if they don't ask you those questions, you've got a response. And you only need like 3 or 4 examples. And then there's a technique that you can kind of do going, which is, let me draw you back to the example I gave to you earlier. There's a language in interviewing. So I know my other panelists will talk about that because they're far more articulate than I am. But I just wanted to give you some insight into that. And then the last thing, Sam, you asked about your career. What would be the thing that you said to your younger self? I would say go with your gut, right? It is that simple. If you go to an interview and you feel like this isn't a 2-way process, then you shouldn't be there. It's okay. There's some companies that you're going to love. There's some companies that you're going to hate. And you know what? That is 100% okay, because you spend more time with your company than you do with your family. So it's a 2-way process. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine as well. You're in control. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you so much. Jamil, I'll pass it off to you.
So thanks a lot, Samantha. Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Jamil. Hi. I've been in the supply chain industry for the last 18 years, the last 12 of which have been with Mars in all sorts of different geographies, all the way from Dubai to Toronto. I've been based out of Canada for the last 8 years, and currently I'm in a supply chain leadership role for Mars Canada. I think there are a couple of pieces I want to touch on. First of all, I want to put a big, huge check mark on what Joe mentioned about the STAR model, because I'm a huge fan of it. And I strongly recommend that you guys use it for your interviewing preparation. The other piece I want to touch on the interview piece is one thing which I learned actually in a storytelling training program, but it absolutely applies front and center to interview preparation, is rehearsals. So rehearse. Just like Joe mentioned, treat this interview as an examination. And like any exam, rehearsal is important, and interviews are not very different. One piece of advice I would like to share with you is also, especially for the ones who are relatively younger in their careers right now, is do not underestimate the importance of soft skills in your career development. Because when we go to colleges and universities, everybody will talk to you about technical skills, whether you are studying marketing, finance, or any other industry. But very few institutions touch on the importance of things like self-awareness or presentation skills or problem-solving skills. And I can tell you with 18 years of experience under my belt is that those are the skills which you use almost every single day as compared to some of the technical skills you have learned at school. So strongly advise you to focus on those as you go further in your career. So that's it from my side.
That's great advice, Jamil. Thank you. Thank you so much. Steph?
Good morning, everyone. I'm so honored to be here with you today, and I'm learning along from our other panelists, as I'm sure you are. I'm sitting here nodding my head and listening, so this is great. And I've had successful and unsuccessful virtual interviews, like others on this call. So I do have the good, bad, and ugly to share if you'd like to hear more about it. But my name's Stephanie Parody. My current role is employee relations in HR for our Canadian factories. I've been in the professional working world for about 13 years now, and 10 of those have been with Mars. So like Siobhan, I started working out in Western Canada, and the majority of my time was spent as a line manager in retail, and then moved into progressive sales and marketing roles. But when I hit my mid-30s, I realized that the roles that support others and their capability and their learning journeys were really what motivated me and got me out of bed in the morning. And so I made a career change, and I called Joe, who you just heard from, and I said I wanted to make a change, and I was scared, and she believed in me enough to say, how can I help? And you need to figure out, I believe, what experiences you want to have and really go for the roles that will help you achieve them. And so for the past few years, I've been working in learning and development, and most recently employee relations. I'm currently in night school finishing my HR studies program. So after 2 years, I'll finally be done in August. And work is where I go to relax. So my husband and I have 4 boys. We have 2 teenagers and then twin 6-year-old boys. So our household is absolute chaos. And so, yeah, like I said, work is my relaxing place. And I look forward to getting to know all of you today.
That's awesome, Stephanie. Thank you so much. And what an awesome story about that initial fear that you had when you thought about that career change, right? And look at that, kind of where that's gotten you. So that's awesome. Okay, so we're going to get into some Q&A now. And the first question, I'm going to direct it to you, Siobhan, to get us started. Can you tell us a bit about how you typically mentally prepare for that virtual interview? So we talked about, the exam kind of preparedness, right? In terms of our STAR method and all of these other more technical aspects of our interview. Mentally, how do you really prepare for that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Sam. And I think that this part of it, the mental preparation, is just as important as doing your homework on your experience and how you want to show up at the interview. So there's 2 pieces of advice that I would give. The first one for me is about visualization. And I do this in not just interviews. I do this anytime I'm maybe meeting with a new person. I'm going into a situation where I feel nervous. I visualize myself at the center of the opportunity. I picture myself standing tall or sitting tall, open body language. I'm owning my space. Women sometimes tend to curl in on themselves. So I picture myself sitting tall and really owning my space. And I sort of then, it doesn't necessarily matter if virtually I don't know, where that other person is, but I really own my space and think about that ahead of time and picture how I feel. And it really helps bring down my nerves. The other thing that I do, the second piece of advice, is words of affirmation. And again, this is not just for virtual interviewing, but make sure you have something that you affirm and believe in yourself. My words of affirmation, some of the people on this call have probably heard me say before, but I say, I can do hard things. This is something that actually Glennon Doyle has a podcast called, but I've been doing it for about 5 years. And being in sales, sometimes I know I'm going into really uncomfortable situations with customers. And I say that to myself before I go into those calls. And it really helps me feel like I have that energy and I have the power to control or do my best in this situation. So that's my advice.
I love that, Siobhan. I love that because I think that's the confidence that you need to have in yourself going into that situation. Yeah. And that's a big part of being ready. And that's the control back on you. To be able to walk in there knowing that you can do it. That's awesome. Joe, I'll pass it to you to build on that mental preparedness.
There's the technical issue again. Honestly, it's ridiculous. Siobhan, that was beautifully articulated. I don't know if I can build really on that. Let me try. So I find talking my nerves through with others really helps. So I use my poor husband as someone I practice on quite regularly. So if they ask for a prepared presentation, I present it to him. If I'm talking through examples, it helps me get clarity. I think big but don't speak specifically. So that's exactly what in an interview people want. So that's why the STAR method helps me. So there's the practicing. The main thing though is really getting out of my own head. So what I tend to do when I'm about to go into an interview is think about all the negative things that they're going to ask me, and what I may or may not think or whatever else. And when I know that I'm going to do well, it's because I'm thinking about my examples. As Siobhan says, I sit up straight, I sit differently, I look differently, I sound differently, I smile differently. And also there's a book that I have, which I don't know if you can see it, but this is my interview book. And it's really just says, She turns her can'ts into her cans and her dreams into her plans. And I bought this when I prepared for my interview for Canada. And I put all my examples in here. I was talking to people that were good at this kind of stuff and was able to kind of get all my thoughts down on paper. So it's not as great and as articulate as Siobhan's, but it works for me.
I love it. Thank you so much. That's awesome advice. All right, I'll move on to the next question then. And Jamil, I'll direct this one to you. What has helped you stand out in an interview? And do you have any tips on intentional things one can do to help them stand out?
Yeah, absolutely, Samantha. Thanks for the question. Yeah, and just I think before I answer the question, one thing which I read somewhere was that an average recruiter gets about 200 resumes whenever they are looking for a job, and then that's why it's very important for you to stand out with the crowd. Now, everybody does the regular stuff, right? So everybody's going to send a resume, they will send a cover letter. So then the question becomes that how do you really stand out? And I think a couple of tips I would like to share here, which have personally helped me both internally and externally, talking to people, is that just try to just create like a one-page summary of your experiences and send it out ahead of time to your interviewers. That will really help you stand out, because then they will have like a very simple one-page visualized template where they can see like what your experiences have been. And you can create one standard one for yourself and modify it depending on what kind of job you're applying for, and highlight the key work experiences that are relevant to the job you're applying for or the key experiences you had. And also within that one page framework, you can share like, where do you eventually want to go? A lot of interviewers are interested in knowing what's your real North Star, right? Because it's not just about the next job. It's about where do you want to land in your career. So try to spell that out in that one pager. So that would be my advice, number one. The second advice would be that take advantage of the technology. While technology can be a huge kind of nerve-wracking thing because you are interviewing virtually and all of that, it's also a huge enabler. So think about LinkedIn, for example, as a platform. Almost every single person out there who is active professionally is available on LinkedIn. So once you find out who your interview panelists are or who is going to be taking your interview, try to reach out to that person with a personalized message ahead of time and try to build that personal connection. And regardless whether you get that job or not, that's a great way to also enhance your online network, right? Because at the end of the day, if you are in a certain industry, you may not get this specific job, but that network may help you land on some other opportunity, right? So I think those are the two tips I would like to share.
Great. Thank you, Jamil. Steph, I'll ask you to build on that question if you can.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And, the first thing that
always comes.
Nope.
I think we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes. There you are.
Oh, okay. I'll start again. So, it's so that's the first thing that pops to mind for me, is always doing your research into your interviewer if you can. But at the same time, research the company. Be prepared to tell them how your values align. Most companies will have a mission or purpose statement on their website, so read it. And if there's something great that the company's doing, like becoming carbon neutral or charity work that really resonates with you, tell them. Ask how you as a potential employee could get involved. It says a lot about you and the organizational citizenship you can bring to a role. And it says that you care about the same things that they do. And that can go a long way. A couple of other little things I would add is be authentic. It's pretty obvious if you're not. People can tell. Things going into an interview: clean up your social media and your online presence. Google yourself. Interviewers might check on you in the way that you're checking on them and make judgments about you. So make your profiles private if there's things that you don't want them to see. And the last thing is something I actually learned in night school recently that I never considered. And it's that experienced interviewers are less likely to prompt you to ensure that their interviewing process is consistent. So if you don't answer a question fully and completely, they might not ask you to build on it. So it's okay to pause, to take a breath. That interview is your time. And like Joe said, be prepared to use a model that works. So if it's the STAR model, use it, because the interviewer might not ask you for more information. So that's all I would add to Jamil's perfect answer. And they're really important things to consider.
Yeah, really great advice there, Jamil and Stephanie. Thank you so much. I'm going to move on to the next question then, and Siobhan, I'm going to direct this one to you to start off with. What are some common interview mistakes that you want others to learn from, as you've seen in the virtual environment, either through your own experience or having interviewed others recently?
Yeah, I'd say, virtual is different. This is your stage, right? And, gone are the days where you can kind of read the body language of the other person. So I think, if you're doing virtual interviews at home, make sure you kind of have a setup at home. Like, I literally have my laptop on the top of a Lysol bottle right now in the office, and that's okay. It's just so that I'm framed nicely. I'm still in like prison lighting in a tiny telephone booth, but that's okay. So things like that. So think about that ahead of time. I did an interview one time where the person had the laptop on their lap, and so it was all shaky. That kind of I felt seasick interviewing them. So the little things like that are really important. It's also kind of, it's polite nowadays to try and have the best, kind of camera that you can have. The other thing is, I think you need to be because it's virtual, you might need to be a little more expressive to kind of get across that you're a real person. So I have found I've started moving my shoulders more than I used to, because I'm a big hand talker. So now I find I move my shoulders a little more. And the other thing, and Steph mentioned it, is taking a pause before answering the question is fine. Whether it's a real life interview, in-person interview, or virtual, taking that pause, and the people who do take the pause tend to have a stronger answer. And then I'll actually tell a little story about maybe a virtual interview I did with a woman who actually ended up hiring. And halfway through the interview, a car alarm went off on her side. And I was like, oh no, this is really loud. Like, it was very close to the laptop. And she was very composed. She took a moment, she apologized, and she talked over it. She said, I'm sorry, it's not my car. I can't fix this, but is it okay if we continue? And it actually showed me calm under pressure from her, that I knew if I was going to put her in front of a customer, that she would be able to handle a difficult situation. It actually was partly why I hired her. So even if things aren't perfect, you can turn sort of mistakes into a great situation. So, and don't, it wasn't her fault, don't profusely apologize. She did a simple apology and kind of moved on. So, things like that, you can, there's silver linings to mistakes when it comes to virtual interviewing.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Siobhan. The one, Jamil, if I can ask you if you have any builds on that question.
Yeah, no, I think it's, I don't have any specific builds on what Siobhan shared. I think the most important thing is to have your nerves under control there, right? So I think not getting super nervous, take it easy. And I think this is where I would go back to what I shared earlier in the day about rehearsals, because once you have rehearsed, you are kind of relaxed, and that really helps you to manage. And of course, a lot of times these things will happen, right? So you will always have some kind of technology issue. I've experienced this the hard way. But I think the most important thing is to keep your composure there and make sure that, you keep things going and then keep it as smooth as possible.
No, awesome. Composure is key. Awesome. So one more question from me before we get into the questions from the group here. So please keep putting your questions in the chat box. We're going to get to them soon. So my last question, I'm going to direct to you, Joe. What advice do you have to approach salary negotiations in the current Canadian job market?
I think that's a fantastic question, and I think I think know your worth is where I'm at. So every business should have a salary scale, and I think it's obvious that most businesses are working within an overhead structure. So there will be an amount of money that they can afford to pay for that role, unless you're Netflix. Netflix have got a very different policy. And I think for me, it's, ask the recruiter, be really clear with the recruiter about what you're looking for up front. If you want to go into a negotiation, that's okay. That's absolutely what you should be doing. Know your worth, be very clear on what you want and how much it takes you to live, right? I'm going to give you an example. So when I came to Mars, I actually took a step back financially because I felt so grateful to work for Mars. And it was actually the biggest mistake of my career. And what happened was, because I was on a sales scheme, and I also had a car in my prior job, and then Mars phoned me up and said, yep, we want you, come on in. And instead of negotiating, I went, thanks very much, I'm so excited, and then spent a year trying to pay off my my car, which was just crazy. And now what I should have done is taken a beat, right? They'd offered me the job, they knew they wanted me. So basically the negotiations with me, the conversation starts with, okay, what am I worth, how am I going to do it, and what financially do I need? And that's the conversation. It's frightening. I recognize it's frightening at times, but you've got the power in that situation. And talk to them about, if they come back with a lower offer, get to a point of, is this really your best offer? Yeah, because I'm going to come in, I'm going to show you I can do this. And, this is going to be a great working relationship. Use language where you're asserting yourself. That's what I'd say.
Thank you. Take a beat. I like that. Stephanie, any builds from you?
Not specifically. I mean, I was given the advice pretty early that employers almost expect you to negotiate, especially in a sales role. So just don't shy away from it. Again, what Joe said, know your worth.
I just want to maybe add one more thing there, Samantha, which is there is actually a very good tool on LinkedIn, which is free. You don't have to really have a premium membership for that. It's called LinkedIn Salary. And sometimes, to Joe's point, if you really are, confused about, okay, what is my worth in the market? Because the same job might be paying you different in Toronto than it would pay you in Dallas, for example, right? So how do you do that benchmarking for your own self? So if you go to LinkedIn Salary, type the title that you're looking for, and then put the location, it actually gives you a pretty decent range of what you should expect. And that's a very good place for you to start your negotiation process, because I know like every company is different and every organization has a different way of compensating people. But those numbers on the LinkedIn Salary, I found them pretty useful in thinking about what a job would pay in one geography or the other. So that's a great place to start.
Yeah, I love that. Can I build on that actually? I think that's excellent. And if they come back and say no, there isn't that salary, talk to them about what could there be in 6 to 12 months time, right? So what is it in 6 to 12 months time? Could it be that you get a bonus, or could you get an additional bump in your salary after you've met X, Y, and Z criteria? Yeah. I think it's all about feeling confident. So if I give the Mars example again, when I first started, I ended up negotiating part way through my first year a bonus at the end of it because of the car and all that situation. So have a think about, what are the 3 things, that you need to deliver in that role, which will then allow you to get either a pay rise or a bonus at the end of it as well.
That is great advice. Thank you so much. Yeah, I wonder if we can get that LinkedIn salary tool maybe shared out with the group. That would be a great resource as well to have them have access to. Awesome. So we'll switch gears now into questions from the group. And I see the chat box definitely moving. So I might just start with the chat box, and then Kim, Lindsay, if you guys have any ones that really stood out, if you want to just boost those, then I can tackle those as well. But we'll start with the first one, and I might direct this back to you, Joe, because I know you touched on this a bit in the initial discussion. How do you suggest to get past the online application if you have bigger job gaps in your resume and the application only asks for job experience information?
Yeah, and I'm transparently, that's a hard one. So I think for me, it's being really clear on your resume. So why did you leave a job? What were you doing? If you're talking with a recruiter, I think you need to have those conversations. The recruiter's job is to make money and get you a job. That's where they need to help you, and it is where they need to help you. So I think for me, it's like, be really clear on your reasons for leaving, which company you left. If there's a legal reason, don't put that. But if it's you went for a career break because you wanted to experience, it's going around the world, or you were with your family, be proud of those things. Put a chunk in there about what you learned when you were having that experience, and then also then go into your further experiences down. But reason for leaving and then what you learned when you had those breaks are probably the two best bits of advice I can give you. Be transparent, be honest. Companies can pick up phones to people and having conversations in the background. So just be as open as you can be in those situations.
Thank you. And the floor is open. This is how we'll manage it if anyone wants to build, or I'll keep going through the questions.
I would love to just add to that, because I read an article about it recently talking about, especially with the newer generation coming in, taking sabbatical, taking time off is much more common than people even think it is. And so to Joe's point, be very transparent with the recruiter, but it's okay to have a gap in your resume. It is not necessarily frowned upon in the way it might have been, 10, 15 years ago. And if a company isn't willing to give you an opportunity because you have a gap in your resume, then potentially they're not the right company for you, and they don't have the values that align with yours. So it's okay to be picky for that reason, but the gap is okay.
Thanks, Stephanie. Okay, we'll move to the next question then. And I think this one is related to how you want to kick off your interview and how you want to close it. Because this attendee says she gets nervous at the start when it's about to start, and then right at the end at the close. So I might pass this to you, Siobhan. What would your advice be to have the best intro and exit? So you start off strong and you close it strong.
Yeah, no, I think this is a really good question, because it's you get a little bit of stage fright. And I think it's your elevator speech that kicks off, right? So you need to practice that. It may come in the tell us about yourself. You might be answering that question. And what I see too often is people start reading me their resume. I can read your resume. I want to know about who you are as a person. So have a little bit about your experiences, talk a little bit about, some leadership examples, but, maybe tell me what you'd like to do on the weekend. Do you have hobbies? I don't need to know every detail, but I'd like to know that you're a multidimensional person, and you can totally practice that. I am a huge advocate of practicing in a mirror. I actually have a mirror in my office at home, and it's there literally so I can practice stuff before I have to pick up the phone. So just practice in a mirror. You can, it's funny and embarrassing and all those things. So you get that all out. And then at the end of the call, you want to leave them with something. You want to leave them with an earnest comment about why you want to work at their organization, connecting maybe to their purpose, connecting to how you are really the right candidate, and you leave a lasting impression with them. And thank you. Saying thank you also can go a long way, that we don't get that sometimes. So if you practice the beginning and the end, the middle will come a lot easier.
That's really great advice. And anyone that wants to build, jump in. Joe.
Yeah, I would like to build on that one, because I think it's a fantastic, point that Siobhan raised about the elevator speech. It's very important to practice it and rehearse it. But I think the one of the other things I would like to share is that there's a myth, and a lot of times, when you try to Google things online, sometimes you are also often misguided as well. There's a myth about when you are introducing yourself, don't talk about your personal life. I don't think that's accurate. Talking about your personal experiences sometimes actually lands you in opportunities where you not even have thought about, right? I'll share with you my own personal example. When I was applying for one of my prior roles, at that point in time, I was doing some stuff on the side on building a business on Amazon, for example. And I talked about that experience, and the guy who was interviewing me was actually a general manager of a business unit. And that whole journey where I talked about my learning and how I built a small business on my own, I think was the single biggest thing that landed me that job eventually. And I was not supposed to talk about it because it had nothing to do with supply chain or the role I was applying for. But don't be shy to talk about some of your personal experiences, especially when they are relevant. Now, of course, it doesn't mean that you take the pendulum too far on the other side. Don't just only talk about your personal experiences. That's not what I'm suggesting. But do have a good mix of your professional and personal experiences, because sometimes, they might open up a lot of unknown opportunities for you.
Great advice.
It is great. That is great. And I can build. So I find a PowerPoint slide is rather helpful on this. And I love it when I just use photos, right? So there's a photo of my family. There's a photo of, connection. So I've kind of worked out that my personal purpose in life is around two things, which is around team and connection. So, why I say that is my photos will have that in there. So it will have a photo of my family so I can talk about them. It will have a photo of my uncle who can read but can't write. And when I took him around my Slough factory, which is a chocolate factory in England, he was like, I don't understand what your job is, but I do understand that you can connect with people, and that makes me very proud. And at that point, I realized I wanted to create a world for people that if they want to work hard, I want to be able to give them a job and they'll be successful. So I don't care about education, etc. So there's a photo of my uncle, so I can talk about that. And there's also the thing around, what I actually do at work as well. So what my strengths are, and and to Jamil's point earlier, what I want to do in the future. So just a few pictures that you can talk about why you want to talk about it, and then it just lands for you, and you've got control then, right? The biggest thing that I hear everyone talk about is take the control, and the one slide helps you with that.
That's awesome. And I think just that's a great kind of storytelling, and really just probably soothing yourself, because you're looking at that story of yourself as you kick off in that moment, right? To help ground you in that, maybe what is a bit of an anxious situation. So yeah. I love seeing pictures of my family up as I start that discussion off, because it reminds me of, hey, what is really most important in that room. Awesome advice. I'll move to the next question. And Jamil, I'll start with you on this one, if that's okay. And this one's coming from one of our members here. They have 17 years of experience in the food quality control function, production manager, and supply chain, but they don't have Canadian specific workplace experience. How do they then approach that in an interview?
Yeah, this is such a fantastic question and very relevant to a lot of newcomers to Canada, because this is the single biggest barrier. I've sit on so many other, similar forums where they talk about like how the new immigrants coming into Canada, apply for the jobs. This is a huge challenge. And I think depending on the industry, but, for example, I'll start with supply chain as an example. Most of the supply chain work is generic, regardless whether you're doing it in Canada or any other part of the world. It doesn't really change the dynamics of the role, right? So one tip to approach this is how you have actually leveraged those experiences to solve common business problems, right? So my advice there would be read through the job description you're applying for, and then think about what are the critical experiences which are required. In a lot of jobs, problem solving, as an example, is a key skill which is required. So try to bring up, regardless of which part of the world you have had those experiences in, but try to show, in this case, how you have actually solved real life business problems, because that will really show to the interviewer that you have that skill available. The other thing I would want to talk about is, for example, if you are applying for a managerial position, talk about how many people you have managed, right? What kind of complex leadership challenges you have faced. Because once again, whether you have managed a group of 10 people in Canada or in Mexico, it doesn't really change the dynamic, because people are people, right? So I think it's important for you to highlight the key skills which are required in the job, and talk less about whether this experience came from this part of the world or not, but just talk about how is it really helping you to be effective on this role that you're applying for.
Yeah, that's great. Any builds from the rest of the group?
Yeah, listen, I mean, Jamil, you said it. This is one of the hardest areas if you don't have the experience. And you know, I was traveling last night, and I got in at 4 o'clock this morning, and I was talking to the Uber driver in a desperate bid to try and stay awake. And he had so many qualifications that he couldn't translate into the work environment in Canada. And it's something that as an employer, I'm quite frustrated with and would like to do something about, but I can't solve it for this call. And I appreciate that there is a lot of frustration out there in Canada about that at the moment. I think what you can do is there is something about work experience. So there are companies like us that offer co-ops and internships. I recognize people may be slightly older, so that might seem like a curious idea. But I think, getting in contact with a company and saying, look, I know you offer co-ops. Could I come in and be your co-op student for 4 months? Then it gets you some experience. I'm going to give you an example about what happened to me a few months back. I got a telephone call from someone that said, I really think you need a co-op student in your HR team. And I said, no, I really don't. Actually, I'm okay for the moment. And she said, no, I do. And here are the 3 reasons why. And she approached me through LinkedIn. And she was tenacious. She was persistent. I'm terrible with technology. She kept going. And eventually I spoke to her, and guess what? She's in now as my co-op student. She's 31 years of age. And I mean, she's rocking it, I have to say. So being tenacious, having that confidence in yourself, approaching people directly, thinking about something a bit more unusually shows your creativity. I think, I'm going to be honest, I think as an employer, we have a responsibility as well to think about how we do things differently. And that's something that as Mars, we're going to try and look at, but, bear with me on that one. But thinking about how you can approach companies yourself and if they reject or say no or don't respond, that's on them. That's their loss. In my 2 weeks with my current or 3 weeks with my co-op student at the moment, she's changing my life. So, know the value that you bring.
That's great. Thank you, Joe. Okay. I see lots more questions coming through. So I'm gonna shift gears to one more here that's at the top of the chat. And I might direct this one to you, Stephanie, if you're okay to answer. Do you have any suggestions? This comes from Sarah, for asking for disability accommodations during an interview. For example, captions for a virtual interview, or wheelchair access for an in-person interview. This individual has run up against some barriers saying that it can't be done. So how would you advise to address that situation?
Yeah, and I'm sorry you had that experience. That's wrong. You see a lot of companies touting inclusion and diversity, and it shouldn't be something that's on the wall. It should be something that they practice, not just preach. Now, in Ontario, there are AOTA standards that they should be following, and if they aren't giving you options for accessibility, then you can report it. But keep in mind, if they're not open to an accommodation, is that somewhere you really want to be? Be sure to give that feedback to the recruiter. I would never bat an eye if someone told me they required an accommodation. The interview will not be successful if you don't have an accommodation that you need. And you'd be setting yourself up to fail if you didn't ask for it. So please don't ever be shy about asking for it. It's really, really important that you do. And any organization worth its salt, in my view, will make an effort to ensure that you can be accommodated and follow all legal requirements when it comes to something like a wheelchair. So please just keep asking and give the feedback if they aren't willing to accommodate. And I hope that sort of answered your question.
Any builds from anyone, Joe?
Steph's summed it up really beautifully. I'd get on the phone to the Ministry of Labour, if I'm completely honest. I recognise I'm quite combative. That's okay. People need to do better. And if they're making people feel isolated, then they shouldn't be. Steph is 100% correct. Every business talks a lot about inclusion and diversity. Live it. So for me, it's as Steph says, I'm really sorry that you've had that experience. If people aren't accommodating, you don't want to work for them, but then pretty much neither should anyone else. So, I feel very strongly about it. Might be coming across, but everyone should be able to be themselves at work and not be judged when it comes to things that like disability. So that's kind of where my head's at. Steph, beautifully put.
Thank you both. Okay, next question, and Jamil, this question is actually directed to you from Vinny in the chat. As you talked about the summary being, a great way to stand out. The question is comparison of the summary versus a cover letter. Should they send along both? Or how do you kind of see those being similar?
Yeah, so I think I saw the question, and I think I wouldn't worry too much about that if this is unfair to other applicants or not, because remember, like, you are really trying to stand out of the crowd, right? So you are really trying to show a point of difference here, which makes you definitely demonstrates that you're eager to be hired, and it's a big plus point for you when you are appearing with the interviewer. So I would not say that cover letter kind of equates what I'm proposing here, because like I said, everybody is doing a cover letter, and what I'm really preaching here is a one-page visualized template, which not a lot of people will do, right? So this is a great way for you to summarize. I know a couple of years ago there was a trend where some people were actually sending video snippets of their experiences. I don't think that was very successful, but like a one-page summary for the interviewer to look at is a great way for you to summarize your experience, and most importantly, show like your, like what I mentioned earlier, where is your North Star? Where do you eventually want to be? Because most of the more established companies are not hiring you for that specific job. They are also trying to bring in talent. It's a war on talent in the market right now for big companies. So it's not just about that specific job. So try to show them through that one pager, what's your North Star? What are your values? Because that will really help the interviewer understand, what you are all about and how do you fit in the culture of the organization.
Great. Thank you. Okay, one question from Claudia. How do you prepare to be calm when you really need this job? Who wants to jump in? Joe.
I can see Siobhan's come off mute. So do you want to go first, Siobhan, and then I can go?
Yeah, I think, this is something, I'm a fast talker. I'm a person who gets nerves just like anyone else. And you have to believe you are worth the time to take a minute. As Joe said earlier, take a beat. There's different things you can do. You can count down from 10 to 1. I use different affirmations. Those are really important to me. I can do hard things. There's another really popular one saying, you are safe. I am worthy. I am loved. Repeating things like that. If you're going down there, if you're walking down there, you can mumble it under your breath. Or if you drive down there, you can do it in the car. There's actual scientific evidence that if you do this, it can actually put you in a calm state. So you actually should do it. Like, actually try and do it out loud, even doing it, walking into a grocery store for practice. And it really puts you in a better frame of mind. And you really want to believe that you're worth getting this job. This job is yours. They would be honored to have you. So you really have to pump yourself up. You're your number one fan.
Yeah, awesome. I think, Siobhan, yeah, brilliant. I also find sage really helps. So I'm not in my usual place of work at the moment, but I've got those rolly things that you sniff, the stress anxiety stuff. And before I'm going to do an interview or a presentation or anything, I literally am rolling it and then sniffing it. And I recognize that may not be everyone's cup of tea, but it works really well for me. I think mindfulness is so wonderful when you can clear your mind. So even if it's just for a minute, breathing in and breathing out, it changes everything. So just take that moment. There's lots of podcasts out there that you can listen to. Just taking that moment for you, a minute changes everything. It honestly does. So Sage, a minute doing mindfulness, it shifts everything, and you can just calm your breathing down. So those are just a couple of techniques I would say.
There's one I love, and I don't know if you guys know about it. It's the Amy Cuddy TED Talk Power Pose, and I've been doing this for years, and I'll show you it now, somewhat in body language, and it might seem really ridiculous, and I have not stopped doing this for years. But walking into any of those situations where I feel like I'm starting to lose control of me owning it, literally you stand tall like you are Wonder Woman and you pose for a minute. And physiologically, your body does start to change. Your stress hormones change. And you will walk into that room and own it. And like Siobhan also gave you that advice, you tell yourself you own it. So it's a great video if any of you want to go and check out that TED Talk. But really, it's in the power of your body as well, right? Being able to change that anxiety, that feeling that you have walking into that room because you own it. You are confident in that moment. So power pose it up every time is what I'd say. Any other builds from the team?
I'm so glad you said that. That's what I came off mute to say. It's advice I got a long time ago. And the last live interview I had was within the office, and someone walked in on me in the shared bathroom. He's big like a bear. And I'm pretty sure I was saying, like, I'm a bear. I'm so big. It was mortifying. But I did it, and I do it every time now. It was the best advice. Even hearing the word interview, I can feel it in my stomach. There is nothing that scares me more than an interview. And anyone who's ever had anxiety knows exactly what that feels like. And the big bear pose is a game changer. So don't be embarrassed when people walk in on you doing it.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think just to build on something that you said, Samantha. So I was going through an interview, and bear with me on this because it sounds a bit spiritual, but I felt that they'd been interviewing someone else that they really, really liked, right? I had no evidence, right? None whatsoever. But in my head, I was like, something shifted in the universe. I can feel it. And so anyway, I sat there and went, okay. And I did exactly what you just said, Samantha. Did the whole stand tall, like, Wonder Woman and everything else. And then I calmed myself, and I had a great session with them. We went over time. It was great. I didn't get the job, right? That was fine. They came out and said they could have given it to me or someone else. The other person had different experience of that particular area. But what I did do was I'd given a great account of myself. They said, the feedback that they came back with was it could have been you or the other person. We just know the other person are slightly better. It was their internal candidate. Fine. Absolutely fine. What I didn't do, which I have done in the past, is say, that's a terrible interview. I wouldn't hire me, and hit my head on the desk in front of an interviewer. Not a great thing to do. So just, I think you're right, Samantha. It's, reassessing yourself and being confident. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm going to do a quick time check here. Love the discussion, 11:10. So I think we have time for a few more questions. We'll keep it going. So question from Carolina. Is it appropriate to request a brief tour of the office? So if you're in a virtual interview, an office environment might not be something that you see yet, right? How do you articulate that? Because it's something that is important in whether or not you land it.
Yeah, why not? If they're interviewing and they're in the office, might be kind of weird, but they can give you a laptop tour or make arrangements if you were to move to a second interview to come in and see the office. As we're moving into offices being open, there's a lot of virtual interviews for first interviews or second interviews, and then maybe third interviews are live. And getting that tour of the office, the feel of the space, how's it set up? I think that's a great thing to ask. And also, to me, would show that you actually want to work here. Like, you're actually interested, you're excited, you have really good energy about it. So I think it's a great ask.
Can I build on that? Because yes, and this is a personal PSA as someone who works in with the manufacturing team, I'd almost recommend it. We have a lot of people joining the organization who have never stepped foot necessarily in a manufacturing facility. They don't know how loud it is. They don't know the temperature in there. And it's a pretty dynamic environment. And if you've never worked, say, in manufacturing, you'd want to get a feel for what you're getting yourself into. Otherwise, you potentially step in on day one and it's not what you thought at all. So don't be afraid to ask for that.
Great. All right, one more question, and this is going back to something that we touched on, which was that elevator speech and that intro. Is there a formula, this associate is asking, on how to answer the question, tell me about yourself? So as part of that elevator speech, in terms of how you frame it, is there a formula to best do that? Joe, I'll pass it to you.
I think it's a hard one. I think I'd go back to what I was saying earlier around the structure that I use. I always, someone said, the best story is the beginning, the middle, and the end, right? So share what you want to share with people, repeat it. The repeating thing is important because sometimes people don't hear it. But I go back to my formula, which is, here's my one pager. This is what I've got on there, and this is how I'm going to talk about me. And then that's how I take control. But I'm sure others have got a little bit more to advise on that.
One thing which I do, because this whole concept of elevator speech was.
Unmute Jamil.
I can hear him.
You can hear him? Okay.
Yeah. I think my mic is unmuted. Yeah, thanks, Laura. Yeah, no, I think what I was sharing was that when I was first introduced to this concept of elevator speech, especially in the interviewing context, one thing I used to do to prepare is time yourself for 1 minute and think about what are the critical things you want to talk about that you want the people to know. They could be from your work experience. They could be from your personal life. Whatever is relevant for that specific job application, just try to time yourself. Don't go above 60 seconds because that's really the whole concept of an elevator speech. Like, in the shortest, set of words, how can you express yourself? So try to time this. And when you rehearse, just, put a timer or something. I put my iPhone timer or whatever, and then just try to rehearse it. And then as you will do this, my experience, once again, is when you'll start doing this for the first time, you will probably be struggling to do this in 3 minutes, and then just challenge yourself. Go back to 2 minutes, then 1 minute. And I'm sure with that practice, you'll get perfect.
Jamil, on that, because I struggle with this very much. So when you say the three things, how do you get concrete in your head about what the things are that you want to share with someone? I think that, help me.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point, Joe. And I think it becomes even more complicated the more experience you get, right? Because there are so many things to talk about. How do you really bring in the relevant stuff, right? Once again, like, my technique, it works for me. It may not work for others, but I would just love to share is I look at the context of the role I'm applying for. So for example, going back to my supply chain world, there are so many different things you could do in supply chain, right? Logistics, planning, customer service. But if I'm, for example, applying for a role which has a lot to do about project management, I would definitely try to force fit something within that 1 minute elevator speech where I'm talking about my project management experience, right? Something like that. So that's just, one way to do that.
Love it.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other bills? I'll move on to the next question. Working from home and remote based versus office based. How would you guys recommend approaching that in terms of negotiation for the role? And I'll leave the floor open for whoever wants to jump in first for this one.
I can start. I would just ask. It's as simple as that. There's a phrase, right? If you don't ask, you don't get. So just ask. A lot of companies are moving to hybrid working. We are certainly one of them. We're saying half the time in the office, but transparently, people aren't policing it. You know, we want people in the office on a Wednesday for a hub day, and we want people in another day so that they can connect with their teams. But it's all about connectivity. So please ask. If they're not open to it, that tells you something about them as an employer. Because for me, I know everyone on this call feels the same. You know, output is about is the best thing. So your PDP, your personal development plan or your objective plan is all about output, not about, you know, sitting next to someone and proving that you can type in front of them. So that's that. The other thing I would look at is the top 100 employers and Glassdoor. They talk a lot about you know, the environment that people are working in. Research them. You can see it on LinkedIn as well. You'll see people in Mars kind of talking about the environment that we're working in. Steph a few weeks back posted something about the fact that, you know, we did a wellness walk in May where you could go out and have a conversation with someone on the phone and walk around, and, you know, it's that type of thing that, you know, just, I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was, but someone said, maybe it was Jamil or Siobhan, I don't remember, but research the company and you can see the kind of environment, but ask. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and I'll build on that. I think those are all excellent points, Joe. And I think you also want to think about yourself. I think the trend is, you know, work from home is best. You know, I want to work from home. You need to be realistic on and really thinking about what's best for you. Is working from home best for you? Why are you, you know, what's influencing you making that decision? When I lived out in Calgary, Mars did not have an office, so I was work from home. However, my team was across Western Canada and I traveled to them frequently. But the weeks where I was at home exclusively with no access to an office, I kind of felt like starving for social connection. So what I learned through that was I am a hybrid person. Work from home is awesome when I want to do focus work, when I'm really digging into some numbers and doing some analytics. But frankly, you know, if you're in sales, you're probably got some social aspect to you. You might want to be open to thinking about that hybrid environment. I recognize the cost of gas right now. I just filled up my car this morning, and, you know, that can be part of the decision about why you want to work from home. But remember too, there's also benefits of being in the office. It is that social aspect. You are there with these people a lot. So, you know, making sure you're just really clear, and you know, have the company explain to you, what process, you know, have they set out now that we're out of lockdown. You're on mute, Sam. No. Maybe try hitting mute and then there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I turned the headphones off, so you might hear a little bit of an echo, but it's all good. I see we have a poll up. Yeah, do you guys see that on your screen as well? What has been your biggest challenge during the interview process? So being nervous, okay. Confidence. Okay, so I hope with some of the ideas and advice so far that, you know, this group has been able to help you guys with some tips to tangibly go away and feel more confident heading into those interviews, to feel less nervous because you own it, and you have what it takes to go out and get it. So, you know, I really hope that we've been able to give you guys this advice that's tangible for you today. I think we'll start to wrap it up here, yeah, because it's 11:21 and we're getting close to time. So Kim or Lindsay, I'll look for the cue from you guys. But yeah, how do we want to kind of close out as a next step?
Can I just, there's a couple of questions that I would just want to touch on, and Steph, help me with one of these if you wouldn't mind. There's someone that's just asked a question about pregnancy and being pregnant as part of the interview process. I'm going to start, but Steph, take over and, keep me honest here. It's irrelevant that you're pregnant. I mean, it's great that you're pregnant. Congratulations. But for an interviewer, it's they should be looking for the best talent. So please don't let that be a story in your head. Be really clear that you are fantastic talent, and that that any company should be lucky to have you. And legally, they shouldn't be putting that as an opposition. But Steph, I'm sure you want to build on that as well.
I was thinking the same thing you were when I saw that, and congratulations on the pregnancy. And yes, pregnancy is protected in Canada. They are not allowed to discriminate against you for being pregnant. And I will say, during the pandemic, I had 2 interviews, and one of them, I did not get the job, and the girl who did was pregnant. And she's now on maternity leave, but she'll be back soon. So they should not be discriminating against you for pregnancy. And if that is the case, like Joe said earlier, report it to the Ministry of Labor, because that's not okay.
And then there's another one about how do you answer questions about your last job if you were let go, not being to the right fit. Steph, do you want to start on that, or how do you want to? Because I know that I can start. What do you tell me what you think? You've gone on mute.
Am I? Hello?
I think we might have some audio, video stuff happening, Joe. So you feel free to jump in because my chat box is frozen. So
okay.
Go ahead.
So I think Steph, are you off mute now? Do you want to? Because I don't want to dominate. Do you want to?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And the question was around taking a break due to mental health.
That was the other one that I wanted to follow up on as well. I'm sorry, Samantha. I'm sorry but I just wanted. There are some questions in here that I want to make sure that we address. So,
go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
How do you answer a question about leaving your last job if you were let go, not to the right fit, during the probationary period?
I don't have a great answer for this one. I would say it's okay not to be a good fit. It's okay that the company's not a good fit for you. A lot of the time, when you aren't engaged in those first couple of months, it's not necessarily because you don't have the skills. It's because it's not aligning with you as a person, with your values, and you don't feel like you're a good fit. That is okay. So don't be shy about saying that. Don't say anything disparaging about the company. Be mindful about that, because you don't know who knows who. It is a very small world, but it's okay for a company not to fit for you. Totally agree.
And talk about your learnings. So that's something that you've learned now, and you now know what kind of company you're looking for in the future. And then there was one about mental health. I'm just trying to scroll now to it. I can't remember what the question was. I think it was something like, that you took time off due to mental health, and that recruiters were, I've got it here, discussing a gap that was due to mental health, as recruiters scared due to stigma. Again, legally, you are protected. Again, it is if you had a different type of illness, you would be protected under that. Mental health is something that people can't necessarily see, but the fact that you took time off to care for yourself is 100% the right thing to be doing. What you did in that time will have been really important to kind of regroup and make sure that you're okay, so that you're raring to go for the next role. And now you've got coping mechanisms in place, and also you can be really clear with your employer about what you need moving forward as well. So I really wanted to touch on that as well. I hope that's helpful, Steph, or any of the panelists. Anyone's got anything to build?
No, that was a great answer, and that it's concerning. It's sad to hear that that's a barrier for people, because it's so common. And I see Ayana jumping up on the screen. Are we going to take these questions away? Can we take them and make sure we answer them. Is that okay?
That's a great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt if there's still a few folks who'd like to weigh in on this. I'm here so that you know I'm ready to help with the wrap up at the end. So no problem.
Yeah, apologies there. We had some tech issues where the chat box got frozen. So thank you, Steph, Joe, for jumping in with those really important questions. And yes, if we can get that final list, then definitely this team here can share this back with the group because we really want to be able to answer all of them.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
thank you so much
great.
for that offer. We will definitely do that and make sure that everybody gets all the answers to these amazing questions. And thank you all, the panel. This has been incredible. You've provided so much wonderful information, and also to our participants. Thanks so much for the great questions. I mean, really, it's really up to you sometimes about how these conversations go. And you really brought a lot of interesting and thoughtful questions that I think have been beneficial to everybody here at the event. So thank you. I'll add one other thing about MYJS and how awesome they are. As many of you may have noticed, that the conference also includes a couple of add-on opportunities. And MYJS has generously, as part of this year's event, offering some one-on-one mock interviews with their associations that'll start next week. So we still have a few spots that are available for these. So if you are interested in accessing some additional support in this area, send us an email. Kim's going to drop the email address in the chat here so that everybody can see it. And then we'll contact everybody who reaches out to confirm an appointment. Now, these will be on a first come, first served basis, as they have been, as we've been collecting the registrations throughout the week. And we'll be sure to honor that by keeping an eye on the timestamp and when we receive your email that comes through, to keep that fair. And then to ensure that, if you are selected, and so that the interview and this mock opportunity is really focused on cater to your needs, we'll be asking you to also submit a resume so that the associate can have a little bit more information about your background, experience, and engage really specifically to help you dive into some of the areas that you want to practice in your mock interview. So that's it for the panel. And again, huge thank you to everybody on the panel here today. We know we've got one more day of the conference left that I mentioned in the start of the day's session. Again, Kim here is going to drop the link in so that you can register for that if you're not already. It's called Acing Your First 100 Days of the Job, Preparing for the New Job Climate. So lots more great information to come there. And also, before you leave, we'll ask if you wouldn't mind taking a few minutes to answer some questions in a poll to give us some feedback about how you felt about today's session. We're always looking for opportunities to improve, and I know that our incredible panelists here would love to know how things went today for you as well. So we'll leave that up, and with that, I'll close the day and I'll say goodbye to our guests, and I hope everyone has a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Iona. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.